Lloyd Vance's Insider Football is back for another week here on the Coastal Sports Digital Network and SR 1029 The Game. So glad everybody can be with us. We got all the news, notes, everything to talk about. We got Kevin Midgette back with us this week. We're excited to have him. How you doing, Kevin?
Doing well. Good to be back finally.
Good, good. We got so much to cover around the league. I mean, Kevin, I wrote up all the games, so we'll go over them. Just kind of, give us our reps to get ready for the regular season. But lots of news and notes to talk around about the National Football League before we get to, the exhibition games that we also love so much. Uh, Eagles, they're just not content, man. They won last year. We talked about, okay, do they have the right mix at the third receiver spot, Jahan Dotson, and all the other names there, and Johnny Wilson. They made a trade with the Houston Texans. They trade Harrison Bryant in the fifth round draft pick to the Texans for John Mechie and a sixth rounder. Now, Mechie was part of that great receiving group with Alabama, um, Devontae Smith, who he's now going to be teammates with again, Jamison Williams, and Ruggs was in that group as well. Just talk to me a little about Mechie. Is that a good trade? Is this Howie fleecing the Texans? What are you thinking in terms of this?
I think they're still looking for a number three wide receiver. I think after this trade, they're still looking for a number three wide receiver. They're trying to get something on the bargain bin and see if they can get something out of Mechie. But I mean, is it swinging the needle in one way or the other? No. It's one of those things. Dotson, Mechie, flip a coin. I mean, if they can't get the ball to a number three receiver, then the point's still moot.
Yeah, and the thing was with Mechie, he came back from leukemia, which was a great story, but he's just kind of underachieved there with the Houston Texans. He's kind of been in the background. Obviously, they have Nico Collins and Tank Dell's injured, but he was behind both those guys, and he didn't have a lot of production in his time at Texas. So I kind of agree with you that the Eagles are bringing in, you know, Mechie, kind of seeing what he can do, and yeah, this third receiver spot a lot of people are saying, okay, how many teams are going to complain about their third receiver? The Eagles do have one of the best tandems in the league. I know AJ Brown's a little banged up with a hamstring injury, but they expect him to be back at full strength. But yeah, definitely, I think Howie's being aggressive. He's bringing more guys in, so we'll see what Mechie can do. A big thing I wanted to talk with you about, Kevin, is the holdout, hold in situation around the National Football League. It came out today that the Bengals are looking for active trade partners for Trey Hendrickson. He led last year the NFL in sacks with 17 and a half, and they're looking around. So I'm hearing that it's going to take a first round pick and also a quality young defensive player. So do you think this is going to happen? Do you think it's much to do about nothing? What are you thinking in terms of Hendrickson?
I've never seen a state, and I'm using the state of Ohio, that is so good at college football is just so absolutely horrible at pro football. It doesn't matter what city it is. I mean, they can't avoid being themselves. It's like, how do you not lock this guy up, give him a contract? Some of the trade stuff, because everyone throws their speculations out there. The one I saw was Hendrickson to the Eagles for Jordan Davis and a third round pick. I'm the Eagles. I do that in a heartbeat. There's no doubt about that. But if they're looking for a first round pick, Cincinnati is, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and the thing is with the teams that I'm hearing are actively talking about Hendrickson: Detroit, Philadelphia, Buffalo, um, Atlanta, Carolina. You can throw them in there, maybe even the Patriots. But you talk about Detroit, Philadelphia, Buffalo. They're all teams with good records. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they're expected to be back in the playoffs. So yeah, you give them a first rounder, but it may be 27 or above. So how much value is there? So you may have to throw something in to sweeten the pot. It, I kind of think this may be a ploy by Mike Brown. You know what I mean? Mike Brown is trying to get. Everybody always says how cheap the Bengals are, and he's just trying to maybe get Hendrickson and his agents, Harold Lewis, to kind of blink here. But it's going to be tough because he's paid Joe Burrow, he paid Jamar Chase, he paid T. Higgins, uh, and it's just a tough situation. They did get Shamar Stewart signed. they kind of sweeten the deal for him to kind of waive some of that contract language they had talked about in the past. But um, Hendrickson, I still believe, is going to be on the Bengals week one, but it's something we're going to have to monitor. He's definitely not going to get that TJ Watt contract, which averages $41 million a year. Staying on the holdout, hold in front. Kevin, another guy that always comes to the conversation, and I think this is why Jerry Jones does it. He wants everybody talking about his boys, his Cowboys. The Cowboys have not paid Micah Parsons yet. He's 26 years old. Um, his agent, David Mugulata, is kind of, they're all getting impatient. Jerry Jones kind of sitting back saying, oh, it'll get done. But this is a guy that's had 12 and a half sacks every season that he's been in the NFL the last 4 years. Is this going to get done, or is this Jerry just messing more things up? I mean, what are we looking at here?
I've said it before, and I'll say it again on this show. I want Jerry Jones to live to be 120 years old. Because as long as he's there, nothing is going to go right for that franchise. Micah Parsons, and he's not a quiet guy, Micah Parsons. He has his own format to, let everyone know how he really feels. This is a powder keg that's going to blow up on this franchise, and I'm here for it. Don't get me wrong, I got the popcorn popping right now. But yeah, it's a huge mistake by Dallas. And the thing is, I don't even know if Micah Parsons is going to be the same if he goes somewhere else. He might have that 1 year where he's going to shove it to him, and then it's like, you know what? I got paid now. I don't know where he's at mentally in this part of the game with him.
Yeah, and the big question I want to see, get your take on is, do you think he'll be in uniform September 4th when they play the Eagles opening night? I think he will. And I always believe Jerry Jones. He just wants the Cowboys front and center on Sports Center and all everybody's names. As long as they're talking about, you know, bad press is good press to him.
Yeah.
So, what are you thinking? Do you think he's going to be out there?
I think he will be because I think Micah Parsons, one of his strengths is he's planning a career after football. He's setting himself up as far as, being a part of the media, a part of being, one of the talking heads like the rest of us, just on a bigger, huge format. He is going to be there. He wants his name out there as well. And I don't know if it's one of those things where he just wants to see this team implode without him or he wants to be a part of it, especially since they're playing Philadelphia. There's a little part of Micah Parsons I know wants to be an Eagle somewhere down the road. So, but yeah, I think he'll be there.
Yeah, and Kevin, you brought up a good point, and all of us around our age kind of remember. Emmitt Smith held out, and he said, "No, you don't want to give me my money? Fine." And he didn't play in the game, and Dallas lost on Monday Night Football, and a big to do. I think Charles Haley threw his helmet through the wall and said, "Give him his money," all that kind of stuff, and it's a situation where you may be dealing with this once again. So, yeah, as everybody else, Dallas, they'll figure it out. It's a mess, and I think that until Jerry Jones kind of steps aside and Steven says, "Dad, go away, let me run the team," it's just going to be more of these shenanigans. But something to definitely talk about here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. Another holdout in the Mid-Atlantic area is Terry McLaurin. And this is another one. Joshua Harris, the owner of the Washington Commanders, Adam Peters, the GM, they seem to be dug in. And the thing is, I just don't know how much leverage Terry McLaurin at 30 years old has in terms of, can he get that Jamar Chase deal that he's probably looking at, $40 million a season? I don't think he's going to get it. I'm hearing around NFL circles that maybe Washington will say, okay, 27. Now, Matt Lombardo was on the show last week, and he was at Commanders camp, and he said he saw Peters and McLaurin talking, and he thinks that it'll get done before week one. But do you think this is going to be some movement here? I don't want you to take sides, but which one do you think has more leverage here?
Well, I think the guy who writes the check, the checkbook in his back pocket, he's got the most leverage, whether he wants to do it or not. And Joshua Harris, as being a Philadelphia 76ers basketball fan, I've seen his work and what he does. He doesn't dole it out like that. I mean, he once again, one guy gets money, that's it, and everyone else gets the crumbs left over. McLaurin's going to have a situation, and they might actually sign him. Once again, it's not going to be Jamar Chase money, but it'll be respectable money. That being said, how many times do you see guys who do this hold out, hold in thing when they finally go to play? Here comes a strained hamstring. Here comes, it's all those kind of injuries where they're not stretched out properly. And the thing is, with the camaraderie and the gamesmanship he had with Jaden Daniels, man, to sit there and slow that process up a little bit, it can't help but hurt the Commanders.
Yeah, it's something. It's this team's got to figure it out because the players talk tough, but they're really basically waiving the 50 grand a day because they're holding in. They're at camp, so they reported. But the big thing, Kevin, is when guys are missing game checks, that's where you know that's a lot more money, and a lot of them change their tune once they're not getting those game checks. And as we're talking about with all these guys except Henderson, they're under contract. So Michael Parsons is under contract to the Cowboys. McLaren under contract to Washington. So they're gonna have to figure this thing out quick because the season is approaching, and we all know once the season starts, teams kind of move. They have their roster, they know who they're going to war with, and they just kind of move on. So something to monitor here around the National Football League. Uh, Lots of like legal things went down too since the last time I talked to you.
Mm,
The Browns, in particularly,
mm.
you talk about the Browns, they're just a mess. You think they would have learned after the Deshaun Watson situation, you know, but receiver Isaiah Bond, who was pretty much a start at Alabama and Texas, got a 3-year, $3 million fully guaranteed contract from the Browns today. He's a receiver. Um, he had a legal situation. That's why he wasn't selected in the draft around the second round where everybody was projecting him. That went away. And he has 4.3 speed. He is a big time player, but is this the Browns making another hairy decision, Kevin?
They always seem to they they're there's certain guys like when they come in, they sit there and they bring in like these top-notch, character guys. They like the character guys. Mike, can the character guys always play? Absolutely not. But the Browns are just like they need help so bad it doesn't matter. It's like, I don't know what's going on with your situation. You're found not guilty. There's no real charges. All right, look, come on in. Let's see what you got here. My quarterback's 105 out there. That I named my starting quarterback. So anything that can help this franchise right now, they're going to do it.
Yeah, he reminds me of the old Raiders. The Al Davis. You're tired, you're poor, you're hungry. He's just, you know, they're bringing anybody they can with the Cleveland Browns. It's just, as you were saying, it's just like, all right, come on, let's try to win some games. They only won what 3 games last year, and their owner Jimmy Haslam has got to be losing patience in terms of Kevin Stefanski. Um, they're also involved with uh, Quinshon Junkins. They drafted him in the second round at Ohio State, big time player. Now allegedly involved in some kind of assault, but the state of Florida decided not to press charges. But he's not even signed yet,
Nope.
so they're in a precarious situation because I hear the NFL is still looking at the police report, and they may do their own investigation slash suspension. So is Junkins going to be signed anytime soon, or you think the Browns are saying, you know what, maybe we better just kind of wait and not get involved in all this?
How about Cleveland does something smart for a change? How about we let this process play itself out? How about let's not lock this guy up to us and then we find out something else? So, yeah, if Cleveland's smart, which I say with a little bit of sarcasm here, they really need to sit back and let this play out and let the NFL do its due diligence and see what comes of it.
Yeah, yeah, and there still may be a suspension there. And speaking of suspensions, we have the situation with the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid. It's kind of been quiet about this and kind of is like, okay, we're going to let everything play out. But Rasheed Rice, uh, they struck a deal, so he had 30 days jail time and then 5 years probation for his accident that they caused, with the drag racing or whatever. The thing is, that was going to come down pretty hard on. We're talking about like maybe a 10-game suspension for him, and now it's going in front of um, the judge that kind of looked at the Deshaun Watson situation. So that's not going to take place until around September 30th. So is this something? And I know you're a fantasy football guy. the Ray Rice fans, is this something they need to worry about? Or are they going to see him? He may play 4 weeks and then you don't see him until very late in the season. So is this something that needs to be covered?
Well, I know some people that I spoke with who happen to be a young gentleman who's a Buffalo Bills fan thinks the Kansas City Chiefs are getting another slight right now in their favor. So, I mean, there's teams that are very anti-Kansas City saying if it was any other team, the guy would be facing punishments right now. Back to fantasy football, though. My big money draft is on Wednesday. The index cards are written, and I'm ready to go. That being said, am I touching Rice? Absolutely not. Anybody else can do it. I'm not touching that guy one bit.
Yeah, and Rasheed Rice, it's almost gonna be like a couple years ago with Ezekiel Elliott, where the suspension's hand down and there's appeals and there's hearings and all this. So Rasheed Rice situation is September 30th in New York City. It'll be Sue Robinson, and then the NFL may look at whatever she hand down in the NFLPA. So it could be a long, drawn out process. But yeah, if you're a smart fantasy football player, you don't touch Rasheed Rice, and the Chiefs, they may have to start thinking about other options now. The Chiefs will have him against the Chargers in Week 1 in Brazil. They have Philadelphia at New York Giants and then Baltimore to start the season. So those are some tough games, and I know that Andy Reid would like to have him. So crazy times there, and we'll see how that works out. We're here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. Thanks for joining us. Going over the news and notes before we get to all the great action that was this week, and then we're going to have a preview of the AFC West. People are watching, though, these preseason games, Kevin. The 8 preseason games in Week 1 averaged 2.1 million viewers, which was up 44% from last year. So that was on the NFL Network and all their platforms. So I always love to ask you this. Did you watch any of the preseason action? Did you check in? I mean, or are you one of those guys? All right, let's start the regular season.
Well, like you said, the ratings were up. You know what that tells me, Lloyd? America's got a huge gambling problem, is what it is. Everyone just wants a taste right now, needs a fix, man. Throw on some third, fourth stringers. Let me throw some cash on it. And you know what happened? I was one of them. I
Oh
went
boy.
in there, and to be honest, 75% of the games I think I won, and all I did was bet the over. So did I watch the games? Not as much as I watched the math. I kept watching the math on it, but watching the games itself, I saw Genty run over some guy. He trucked somebody, but I'm not really watching the games. I'm watching math.
Yeah, I agree with you that I did hear one from one of my loyal guys. He had to over in the one Jets game in Week 1, and he was all jumping around because they got over 40. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm like, man, you may have a problem. I'm like, you got to be careful betting on these games. I guess if it's only, if you're doing $50, fine. But some of these guys are still laying some cake on these things, and
Mhm.
you don't even know who half these guys are because a lot of them we know cut down day is going to be August 26th, which is next Tuesday, and teams cut down from 90 to 53, and that will affect a lot of this. Uh, One other signing before we get to the games, um, the Buffalo Bills. Jared Cook got his money. He's 25 years old. He got a 4-year, $48 million extension, $30 million guaranteed, which makes it $12 million per. Last season, he barely had over 1,009 yards, but he did have 16 rushing touchdowns and a career high 4.9 yards per carry. I know Nate was excited about Cook getting his money, but is that a lot for him? Is he worth that? I don't think he's in that upper echelon set of backs. That's a lot of money for him.
I think for him, that's a score to get that kind of money. Because I agree with you that in that same regard. I don't think he's one of those top guys. Is he? I mean, he's better than average. There's no doubt about that. he's a guy I think you do need that two back kind of going forward with Davis as their second running back right there. I think he's going to get more touches this year as well. But Buffalo knows that this is it. They need to try and win it now. You have now an aging Kansas City team, and Buffalo's window is right now. So I mean, you want Cook happy. You want him in there. You can't take him sitting out and making a big fuss about everything. So they did the right thing by him, I think, and I think he did well financially.
Yeah, you're right, Kevin. And it's a situation where they had some leverage, because let's face it, Ray Davis is not going to carry them over the finish line, and Frank Gore Jr. and whomever else they have there. They need to have their front line back out there, and yeah, they probably overpaid Cook a little bit, but he's a pretty good weapon in terms of receiving, and other than their tight ends, they're kind of hurting in terms of offensive weapons. So we'll see how that works out for them. But I do agree with you that they put a lot on Josh Allen, and the window is closing. You don't want to have him get so beat up that he's not effective on the back part of his career there. So we're in Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, the Coast Sports Digital Network. I'm here with Kevin Midgette. We're going around the National Football League. It was preseason week 2. I mean, exhibition football. Who doesn't want to talk about it? Well, you know what? We're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of just go around the games, and Kevin and I'll give our take, and he may have watched it. Maybe he had a little coin on it, so he had it on his phone there. The Tennessee Titans beat the Falcons 23-20. In this one, there are a couple things that stood out. Van Jefferson, who was trying to make the Titans, he had a bad drop in this game, and you're starting to wonder, like, okay, is his career done? He's bounced around the league a little bit. Also for the Titans, rookie Gunnar Helm, I think he's a tight end. He had 4 receptions for 48 yards and a TD, so he looked good in this game. But other than that, there really wasn't a lot to kind of hang your hat on. Were you interested in this one at all?
Absolutely. The over hit Lloyd on the back end because all the backups came in. They started scoring points left and right. I thought I was left for dead in the second quarter with that. I saw Cam Ward throw a pass. Oh my God. Should be going south for the winner. It was such a duck.
Yeah, I
And I'm
saw
just like,
that one.
and that's the number one pick in the draft right there. So once again, it's one of those things you get to see some of these guys, but at the same time you also see the younger guys like Cam Ward. He's got a long way to go.
He does, Kevin. And everybody was like, oh, definitive number 1 overall pick, 2 for 7 for 42 yards. And you just wonder about the playmakers that are on the Titans. Yeah, they have Ridley, and they have Lockett coming over from Seattle, but you just wonder how much they have left. And Pollard's kind of a smallish back. So I think it's going to be a long season for the Titans. And Brian Callahan better watch the hot seat there. But, the Falcons did get their young pass rusher, James Pierce, on the field. He did have 25 pass rush snaps and some pressure. So they're going to need that. But, overall, kind of a boring game. Next game we'll talk about is the Seattle Seahawks beat the Kansas City Chiefs, who are the Chiefs have kind of been mailed it in this preseason, but 33-16. Now, I'm hoping you had the over in this one, man.
Yep, the over was 40.5, and they overhit on that one. So yeah, I hit that one as well. And I don't. Kansas City's one of those teams though. They really could give a hang about the preseason. They don't care at all. They're built for the down the road. So I don't know how much game plan they're even really doing. I can see them out there with like a bottle cap and a wadded up piece of gum, and it's like, all right, you go to this spot, and we're going to throw it here. So take it for what you want, but Seattle hasn't looked that bad in the preseason if you actually looked at some of their games. But once again, it's preseason.
Yeah, and there was a couple of takeaways that I saw on this one, particularly Kansas City left tackle Josh Simmons. He's coming from Ohio State. He had a knee injury, but he's done very well this preseason at left tackle. He had eight pass setups, and he had no pressure going. And it was a big problem in the Super Bowl where they did not have that left tackle, and Thuney tried to go out there, and the Eagles dominate him. So they're hoping that they got a steal on Josh Simmons, and he's playing well for the Chiefs, even though the score to indicate the Chiefs did well. But also Robert Tunyon, you remember him?
Mhm.
Robert Tunyon, Packers former Pro Bowler, tight end. He had 5 receptions, 41 yards, and a TD for Kansas City. So he's trying to make the squad, maybe as a third tight end. And I thought that was interesting. You talk about Seattle, and I think a big thing that Mike McDonald's doing there is he's rebuilt his offensive line. Now, they have Gray Zabel, the young man that they drafted. He did well in this game. Um, and then Anthony Bradford and some other guys. But Charles Cross, their best offensive lineman, didn't play in this game, and they just ran over Kansas City for 120 rushing yards on 2 drives when they had those guys in. So they're going to run the ball. McDonald looks like he and Clint Kubiak, they want to get that running game going and help that defense out. I don't think Darnold's going to throw for as many yards as he did last year. But yeah, Seattle has looked pretty good in the preseason. We'll see, because that division could be kind of busted wide open. I wanted to get your opinion on that division because Matthew Stafford has a very bad back injury. Speaking of drafting, I know a lot of guys. Me and Nate had our fantasy football draft about 2 weeks ago, and Puka Nacua was on the board, and everybody's talking about Devontae Adams. Is that going to be a problem for anybody that's taking a Ram? I think, Matthew Stafford at 37, he's getting epidural and all this. I think it's going to be a problem. What are you thinking about that injury for the Rams?
The Rams definitely have some weapons on the field, but the thing is, you have to have somebody be able to get them the ball. I think Kyron Williams still might have great value. I mean, when you get into the red zone situations for touchdowns and everything. But like I said, my draft's on Wednesday, and I kind of like Nakua. Say if I got like the 7 to 9 pick, something like that. But now with the Stafford situation going on, I'm probably going to pass if he's there.
Right. And speaking of quarterbacks, we'll go to another news and notes before we get to some other games. The Cleveland Browns named their starting quarterback. They said, all right, it's you. A bunch of question marks in their quarterback room, but it's going to be veteran Joe Flacco, 40 years old. He's going to get to start. You had Dylan Gabriel got to start against the Eagles. I watched a lot of that game. I was going to go down there, but it was too hot. I was like, eh. You know what I mean? And with Shador Sanders getting hurt, he hurt his oblique muscle in the practices with the Eagles. It was kind of like, all right, not a, I don't want to go down there and see the rest of the guys. So Gabriel played okay, and then he said, well, I'm not an entertainer. I'm a competitor. So he's taking a shot at Shador. I'll let you comment on that. And what do you just think of it? Do the Browns have anybody to start? And when you look at their upcoming record, their schedule, they're in trouble no matter who's the quarterback. Cincinnati, at Baltimore, Green Bay, at Detroit, Minnesota, at Pittsburgh, and then they have Miami. And most of those teams made the playoffs last year. So talk a little bit about the Browns quarterback room and their mess.
First of all, Joe Flacco is 40 years old. I want to see a birth certificate. I'm not buying any of this stuff, man. That guy's a good 55 if I've ever seen it. It's unbelievable. But that's a situation they should do, though. You have all these young quarterbacks who apparently get along so well together because they're all jealous of each other for, being drafted ahead of them, being drafted after them, getting more attention. And both of them want to start, but neither one of them are ready. They're green as anything. So you have to throw Joe Flacco out there with his, walker and everything to take these hits until these guys can figure it out. So Joe Flacco's that guy.
Yeah, and what do you think about Kenny Pickett? The Eagles, and we're going to talk about the Eagles game in a minute, but they made a trade, and I don't know who got the worst of that trade. It was DTR, who's just wow. And then you got Kenny Pickett. Does Pickett make the Browns, or could he be a trade piece with one of these other teams that need a quarterback?
Well, first, let me address DTR. He stinks. Oh, man, does that guy stink. Jeez, oh, God. So going on from that, Kenny Two Gloves, he's going to get a start. He's going to have to, especially if they want to shop him. You figure Flacco plays maybe 2 to 3 games. He gets a injury or something like that, then it's a revolving door. Then next guy up, all right. Pickett has one good start. You're blowing up people's phones at that point, man. You try to get anything you can for him. And do I think he's a good quarterback? Absolutely not. He was all right, and I'm saying just all right for a team that won the Super Bowl. Let alone you expect that guy to go in and play. But you just got to bide as much time as you can before you decide on one of these rookies which one's going to be the first one to go out there and start taking hits.
Yeah, it's crazy, because Super Bowl champion. And,
Mm. Yeah.
unfortunately, yeah, he's got his ring, that gaudy ring that we talked about. So yeah, I think in the end, and it's crazy because Andrew Barry is talking about keeping four quarterbacks on the active roster for the Browns. And then you have the whole Deshaun Watson mess with his Achilles injury and making $46 million. But he's going to be on the physically unable to perform list, may not even be ready to play by November. So that room, and it's crazy. That's all you talk about with the Browns. Everybody's been talking about the Browns. George Sanders, like, the Browns are a terrible team. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I think a lot of times we spend too much time talking about them. And I think in the end, you're right. I think Flacco does get to start in this, gauntlet of the early season games, and then they say, you know what, enough's enough. Let's see what one of these young guys can do. I always thought Shador should have been taken ahead of Dylan Gabriel because Gabriel's arm strength is just not NFL quality. If they start him in a regular season game, they'll probably see that. But it's definitely crazy times. And Kevin's talking about coaches on a hot seat. Stefanski, you would think they would put him on a hot seat because he has not won a lot, and he's supposed to bring over um, all that pedigree and everything. One of these quarterback whisperer type guys. But yeah, they made the playoffs with Flacco. They caught lightning in a bottle, but they just have not done anything since. So crazy time at the Browns. We'll see. We'll recap their game with the Eagles in a minute. We're here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on a Coastal Sports Digital Network, SR 1029 The Game. Thanks for joining us. All right, Saturday. Moving on to the Saturday games. The Houston Texans, I mean, I don't want to say destroyed, but they beat up on the Panthers. It was 20-3. I mean, it probably could have been worse. It looked like one team came out and was ready to roll, and then the Panthers just like, whatever. you know,
Yeah.
what did you get anything from this? Now I'll give you a couple news. C.J. Stroud did look good in this game. He's 6 of 8 for 44 yards, 1 TD, first real meaningful preseason action. And then it was good to see a sighting of Nick Chubb for the Texans. 5 rushes, 25 yards, 5 yards per carry. He did have a long run of 9. They may need him because Joe Mixon is banged up. So, did you see anything from the Texans or the Panthers in this one?
I'll put it to you this way, Lloyd. I didn't even bet on that game. That's how much like it wasn't on my radar. It was nice to see C.J. Stroud though put together something, a decent game, just for the fact he had such high expectations last year after his first season, and basically they got the film on him. They figured him out a little bit. So as far as his maturation process as a quarterback, it's gonna I'd be nice to see how he rolls with that this year. The adjustments that he's made to improve.
Yeah, it will. And the thing is with Stroud was interesting. We're in a 10-person fantasy league. He wasn't taken. You know what I mean? Most guys only take starting quarterbacks, so he's on a waiver wire. Do you think that's something that's consistent around fantasy football, or do you think that's like, okay, people think C.J. Stroud has regressed?
See, I'm one of those guys. I like having a good backup because I don't want to have my top string quarterback goes down, then my season's shot. So if I had someone like C.J. Stroud around, I see like Jordan Love also is around, like for the backup quarterback where you would draft those guys. I'll take a flyer on one of them there. But yeah, if I was just playing in a league where everyone had one quarterback, yeah, I see him not being drafted.
Yeah, and I think with the Texans, um, D'Amico Ryans is ready. He's like, all right, ready for the regular season. Their defense does have some teeth. They have Derek Stingley Jr., who played in this game, 12 snaps. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson also did play as well. So, a lot of expectations for the Texans, and it's a bad division. They probably should win that division again. Jacksonville obviously talking tough with their new coach, and they'll see if they can do something. But I think it's the Texans in that one. The next game we'll hit on is the Patriots beat the Vikings 20-12. In this one, I mean, there's not a lot. There's some things to talk about, but the Pastronaut, Joshua Dobbs got some revenge against the Vikings. He was 11 of 16, 106, had a touchdown in this game. Looked good. J.J. McCarthy didn't play. Sam Howell looked terrible for the
Oh yeah.
Vikings. If McCarthy's not ready to go, they're in trouble because Howell was 1 of 5 for 13 yards in this game. There is a receiver, and you can put this on your waiver wire in terms of fantasy. Efton Chisholm from the Patriots. He's trying to be the new Cooper Cup. I mean, this guy had 6 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. He didn't practice on Monday, but a lot of people are talking about this young guy could crack the lineup. Obviously, the Patriots need somebody because they have Stephon Diggs, and a bunch of, also rants.
Yeah, the Patriots. I think Vrabel's not playing any jokes. He wants to come out. He wants to win football games, and I think he's New England's going to be. I don't want to say they're going to be a huge surprise, but they're going to be a lot better than some people think.
Yeah, and I agree with you. They're in a couple weeks we'll make our predictions in terms of surprise teams and all that. But they are one of mine. I'll just throw it out there. I think they can get maybe the 6th or 7th spot, could sneak into the playoffs, be a wild card team. But Brable is bringing that tough style. They're 2-0 in the preseason, and you're right. They're trying to win these games and show people the physicality that they now have. They brought in a bunch of free agents. Mac Hollins had some catches in this one. You see Drake May looking very comfortable in the pocket. And Travion Henderson, talk about him a little bit. I mean, he had another great game. He had his second straight game where he played well. He had 4 carries for 20 yards, 16 of them coming after contact. He looks like he can catch the ball as well. Is Ramondre Stevenson, should he be worried? Because I think this kid looks like he'd be an RB1 soon.
Yeah, he should be worried. I mean, what is his first game? That kick off 100 yards for a touchdown?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, that kid's going to be a problem down the road. The thing is to find him time to get the ball. And it's going to take them. They're going to have to, of course, they're going to stick with Stevenson, and you're not going to see it really, I think, kick over until maybe the end of October, early November. He's going to get more reps. But yeah, that kid's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and he's exciting to watch. And definitely I'd say, folks, if you're going to draft some, take a flyer on a rookie or give him an opportunity because I think he's going to catch a lot of passes. He's kind of a dynamic guy. He may be what a Chain kind of was for the Dolphins, And speaking of Chain, he does have a calf injury that we need to monitor that as we get closer to Week 1. We're on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. I'm here with Kevin Midgette. All right, we're going to talk about the favorite team of all my relatives, the Philadelphia Eagles. And they didn't look that. I got to tell you, this is a Saturday afternoon game. It was hot outside. Cleveland beats them 22-13. It was kind of a stinker. I watched a lot of this. Well, I watched it, then I walked away, and I said, "Oh, why am I watching this?" But in this one, there were a couple takeaways from it. Dylan Gabriel started for the Browns, as I said. You know, he should kind of pipe down about taking shots at Shador Sanders because, yes, he threw for 143 yards in the game, but he threw a bad pick six. DTR, the Eagles traded for him. Howie Roseman was like UCLA guys or something. I don't know because he looks terrible. As we were saying, 5 of 8 for only 17 yards, threw an interception. He got sacked one time, and he just looks tentative in the pocket. He just looks like he can't complete passes. So it was a lot of those two quarterbacks. A bright spot, though, for the Eagles, I got to say, is Makuba may have won the safety position opposite Reed Blankenship. Makuba had that pick six that I talk about on Dylan Gabriel. He also had a fumble recovery. So talk a little bit about this game, and did you bet on it?
That one I did not because that's just a superstition for me. I have bad luck during Saturday day games of any sport, so I try to stay away from the early ones on that. For the Eagles part, nobody wanted to be on the field. I mean, you're playing Cleveland in a preseason game, and you just won a Super Bowl. There's only so amped up you can get for that game. And DTR, the thing is, he stinks. We've established that. That guy is terrible. I can't believe he has a job as of right now. Makuba, he has to take that safety gig. Somebody has to. They're getting ready to start breaking camp here. Somebody's got to be a starter. And the fact is, you want to see someone who seems like he could be a ball hawk. He has a nose for the ball. That's the kind of guy you want out there. So the fact you get a pick six, you get a fumble recovery, those are things you want to see. As far as the Browns go, I I almost thought about betting on the Browns in that game too, because I'm like nobody on the Eagles wants to be there. And you're right, it was unbelievably hot in the Mid Atlantic as well. So hindsight's 2020 on that one, but I don't take a lot from it as far as anything else though.
Yeah, and as we're talking, we always take a strong focus on the Eagles. We'll look at kind of as we move towards next Tuesday, August 26th, which is cut down day from 90 to 53. Let's look at just some of the decisions that the Eagles have to make. Obviously, Super Bowl champions. I mean, there's not a lot of things they have to worry about or need to change, but the receiver position, AJ Brown, we know he's entrenched there. Devontae Smith, we figured Jahan Dotson, Johnny Wilson. The big thing is, has Darius Cooper played his way onto the team? He was a star of week one of preseason. I tend to think, wearing number 41, he's going to be on a practice squad.
Yeah, first of all, yeah, rocking the Keith Byers number on top of that, it's like, come on, man. I know Keith Byers isn't retirable enough of a number, but every time you see like some numbers that guys are still wearing, it's like, really, really. Yeah, he has practice squad written all over him. Actually, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah. And then the offensive line, Landon Dickerson had a leg injury, so he's on, physically in their perform list or something. He's been injured, so they're not sure if he's going to be ready for week one or not. They keep trying to slide this guy Brett Toth in there. He's been on the team for like 7 years. They say he's a coach's pet. I mean, he looked like he struggled a lot in this Browns game. So they're like, okay, is it going to be him? Is it just going to be Darian Kennard? The offensive line, which was the strong point of the Eagles last year, is it going to be in place or who's going to be that right guard? We'll start there. Is it going to be Tyler Steen or Matt Pryor? And then how do they cover up for Landon Dickerson's injury?
Well, I think they want Steen to win the job. I think they want him to take the job. Whether he'll be able to do it or not, that remains to be seen. But I think all indications in the beginning were definitely for Steen to take the gig. Now going forward for the rest of the line, Dickerson. The one thing, I mean, even if he's banged up, we all know he can carry the beers around for after practice. Yeah, he's healthy enough to do that though. He can get that done for the team, so we'll have no problems with guys dehydrating after work. But I think they'll have everyone in line pretty much. I think everyone will be ready as for week one. And once again, there's no need pushing anybody in this situation. You got plenty of time. So when it all said and done, yeah, the line will be fine.
Yeah, and Stoutland, the Eagles fans trust. So Stoutland will figure it out. I think though, you want that cohesiveness, and that was just such a strong last season's team. So they'll have to work that out. But another position, kind of looking at, we were talking about DTR. I think DTR gets cut. Kyle McCord, local St. Joe's prep guy. Everybody knows him. He looked okay in the game. I guess he's going to be the third string guy. Or maybe the Eagles just go with two on an active roster with Hurts and McKee, and then they put McCord on a practice squad, kind of shuffle them back and forth. Is that how you're seeing it?
That's how I would imagine it would go. I mean, if you get past Hurts and Tanner McKee, you're in trouble. You're in a lot of trouble. So I was like, I would just carry those two, do the like you said with the practice squad, and see what you got at that point. Because if something happens to those two, let's be honest, if it's in the right amount of time, you're making a trade for somebody. Kenny Two Gloves comes back, so it's something like that.
Yeah, and that'll be crazy. Like, when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl in '04, the '05 season blew up, and you're talking about Mike McMahon out there, and
Hmm.
if you're in that type of situation where you got to bring somebody up the street, yeah, make a trade, bring somebody back, but I think that they should be strong there. AJ Dillon at the running back position has looked good. He's come back from that stinger, seems to be running hard. He's catching the football well, so I think that's a good backup for Saquon Barkley. Somebody was asking me, I was at a function, they're like, does Saquon get 2,000 again? What do you think?
Absolutely not. There's no way that guy's getting 2,000 yards again. The closest guy was it Dickerson as a rookie had 1808. Then he broke the record the next year. For someone to be that close to 2,000 yards back to back years, especially someone I don't want to say in advanced age because he's a young man in relative speaking terms, but football wise, the wear and tear and the tread off those tires, there's no way you would want even him to accumulate those carries in my mind. Now, would the Eagles do it? Nick Sirianni, who knows? But
Yeah.
yeah, he shouldn't be in that situation, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because last year Saquon had, including playoffs, 482 touches, and that's just a lot. So they kind of, yeah, give AJ Dillon some opportunities to kind of cut into that, physicality. And then you have Will Shipley, who hasn't looked too bad, throw him in the mix as well. Just to take, even if they take about 5 extra carries a game off of Saquon Barkley, that should help him in the long run. So I think running back they're set at. D line's going to be interesting. Now, Ty Robinson, I wanted to get your opinion on him from Nebraska. They drafted him this year in the 4th round. He looked very good, getting a lot of pressures. Do you think he can crack the mix? I think they're really hoping he can replace Milton Williams.
They're definitely huge on the rotational guys, getting fresh guys in there. So it's like with that kind of swing, yeah, he's going to get some looks. I'll put it that way. Whether he does in those situations remains to be seen. But if he can get in there and you get some fresh young legs going there, getting some pressure on the quarterback, yeah, there'll be ample opportunities for him.
Yeah, and I, you have Nolan Smith there expecting him to step up. Jalix Hunt stepping in there. How about Josh O'Shea? Is there anything left for him? He's coming over from Kansas City.
Nah, I think he's done, to be honest, in my opinion. But that's just me throwing it out there. And especially over the course of a long season as well, how much is really still left in the tank?
Right. I do agree with you. He's kind of, a cap casualty guy, and if the Eagles can get some, you know, replacement sacks out of him, where he's an end of rotation guy, that'll be good. But yeah, I don't think they think he's going to make an impact on them. Uh, Zach Bourne, he was a little banged up. He started practicing again today. Um, should Eagles fans worry about? He's got in the bag now. You know what I mean? Is he going to be the same player as last year?
Um, in a perfect world, yes, but in reality, no. How many times have you seen it happen where a guy has a career year out of basically nowhere, leaps in there, basically reinvents himself, becomes this all pro guy, gets the big contract, and the next year just kind of falls back? It's one of he regresses, I'll put it that way. Do I think he's going to do it? Not totally, but yeah, I don't think there's any way he plays like he did last year.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be something that's going to be monitored. And the exciting thing for Eagles fans, if this works, you get Zach Bond in the middle of that defense with Jahad Campbell, who's healthy. He had that shoulder injury, leg injuries coming out of the draft, but he's looked very good in camp. I talked to some guys that were there. They said that he's been flying around after the football. So Jahad Campbell, if they can get him and Zach Bond in that middle, that's going to be a big um, help for that defense. So I know Fangio's looking for that veteran leadership and Zach Bond, and then he get that young, exciting guy in Campbell, who's just a playmaker. So that's going to be interesting. But big thing, obviously, with the Eagles, and I want to get your take on. We talked about camp battles. Left corner. Who would have thought Darius Slay leaving, going to the Steelers, be such a big thing? You got this left corner is an issue, and then I didn't get a chance to talk to you after the Eagles' first preseason game, but they just got burned, man. I mean, Jamar Chase spinning them guys around like a top. Now, Matt Lombardo, who was on last week, he said, well, that Chase will do that to anybody. Well, I don't know. I
Hmm.
thought Ringo looked pretty bad out there. They have these Bennett, who they just traded for. He's kind of working his way in there. But Dory Jackson, he's had flashes here and there. You have Eli Ricks as well. A lot of choices. Mac McWilliams taken in the 5th round this year, but who's going to win that left corner spot? And is this something that Eagles fans should keep their eye on?
Oh, most definitely. I think Ringo eventually gets the job. I think they start the season with someone who they're more familiar with. That being said, also, it's going to depend on that defensive line getting pressure on the quarterback. Because if these guys are left out on an island by themselves, it's going to be a long season. So that defense has to get pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think a big thing is there. I don't. I think Fangio is going to move Q Mitchell around a formation some, trying to get matchups, but wherever Q's not, they're going to try to pick on that other corner. And that's is interesting because the Bengals, we always talk about the slow starts that they've had in 2019 and 2024 going 0-3. Well, when they played the Eagles, they were like, all right, we're making sure we're going to be ready to roll when the season starts. And they were just targeting Ringo over and over again. I mean, the one touchdown pass, he's, spun him around like on a slant and then just took it to the house, and the Eagles were kind of in trail mode. So it's a tough decision, but I always say follow the money, Kevin. And I really think Haley Ringo, 2023 fourth round pick, they're going to give him the first opportunity. Obviously, they have Bennett, who they just traded for from the Raiders. They'll give him an opportunity. And then Adoree Jackson, who I just don't know how much he has left. I thought he was a good player for the Titans, but he's just bounced around the NFL the last couple of years. With the Giants last year, he's kind of struggled. So, yeah, I say Ringo, Bennett, then Jackson at that position. At safety, I think it got solidified. I think Andrew Makuba, and I think they wanted this too, to be honest with you, Kevin. Andrew Makuba coming from the University of Texas this year in the second round. I think they're happy that he's outplaying Sidney Brown, who I think's better as a special teams guy.
Yeah, I agree as well. It's like we've seen enough of Sidney Brown. You kind of know what you got. So the fact is, put someone else in there because Sidney Brown, if it has to go back in there, you know what you're getting. You put the young guy in there who, it's just a different player as well. He seems to have what I spoke about earlier, the ability to get after the ball, to make something happen, some turnovers. So, see what happens with that. And if not, you have back on the bench, Sidney Brown. He's not going anywhere.
Right. I agree with you. And the thing is with Brown, you got to worry about personal foul penalties in that sort. I mean, he's always pushy, chubby after the plays, and he is aggressive. But yeah, I just think Makuba is the type of playmaker that Fangio wants back there, and he doesn't want somebody who's going to make mistakes. And unfortunately, you were kind of alluding that with Sidney Brown. There's some times where he takes a bad angle and his coverage is not the best. So yeah, I think it will be Makuba and Blankenship back there. Obviously, we didn't talk about everybody's favorite player. I see him on all the commercials and everything. Cooper DeJean, and he nickelback extraordinaire. I think they should leave him there at nickelback, and then eventually maybe move him to that free safety spot because Blankenship, we talk about his coverage liability. So Cooper DeJean, is that the right spot for him at nickelback, or should he move to outside corner that so many people are clamoring for?
I say leave him where he's at, where he's been successful. If it becomes a need where you have to put him out there, then you're going to have to do it. But at this point, it's like with him right there, that's a spot you don't have to worry about. Why would you put him on a different position where you got to worry about him then, and then you have to worry about who's at nickel? Now you're worried about two spots. Keep him where he's at.
Yeah, I agree with you. And he's a strong tackler from that slot position. He also can blitz him from there. He kind of, is a smallish linebacker type, but he has the speed to cover those tight ends. So why not leave him there? So I think that's what Fangio's leaning towards. It's interesting how there's always, you have the fans take, and then you have the old ball coaches like, yeah, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to do, I had it work last year. Keep your mouth shut. Guy an interception in the Super Bowl, biggest play of the game, probably a pick six, and play him there and just go from there. So I think that's what he will do. The last thing with the Philadelphia Eagles before we get to some of these other games here in Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 1029 The Game, the Coastal Sports Digital Network. I'm here with Kevin Midgette. Should Eagles fans and one of my loyal emailers, my cousin Kevin, asked me about this. Jake Elliott, is this something people should be worried about? You know what I mean? Last season he was shaky coming down the stretch, missing extra points. Didn't really come back to bite them, but in the playoffs he was a lot. made some big kicks, including one in, I think, in the snow and one in the Super Bowl as well. But what do you think about Jake Elliott? Is this something to be monitored for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Absolutely. You see kickers, especially, they're like closers in baseball. It's like so as soon as they start getting hit, it's like they start spiraling and they're done. Kickers in football, once you start missing kicks, big kicks especially, which Jake, to his betterment, hasn't done in the postseason. But once they start missing kicks like that, it's in their head. It's like a very cerebral position more than anything else. You need the physical attributes, but it's a lot of mental that goes on. You're by yourself a lot. So is it something to worry about? Most definitely.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. They'll monitor. He's been on the team. He was on the 2017 Super Bowl team, and this one obviously in 2024. So veteran guy, always been there. People always remember what he did. The big kicks. The 60-yarder against the Giants to win the game, etc. But if he gets the yips any further, Sirianni may have to say, okay, I can't trust him in a big spot and maybe bring in some competition. So something to be monitored as they go into the season. We're going to go around some of these other preseason games, get Kevin's take on it before we do our AFC West preview. The Miami Dolphins beat the Detroit Lions 24-17. In this one, there are a couple things that stood out to me. Kyle Allen played really. This is preseason. It's crazy. He may have gotten a game ball if it was
Mhm.
regular season. But Kyle Allen, 14-17, 124, two TDs for Detroit. I mean, he played very well for them. Uh, and he's really been getting the ball to a couple young guys. Jackson Meeks, he had 7 receptions, 93 yards, and one TD. He's the nephew of Zadarius Smith. But the guy I want to get your take on, and I think he should be on a waiver wire uh, lookout, is rookie Isaac Tesla. Now, they traded 2 future third rounders to move up to take him. The Lions did. He had 4 receptions on 5 targets, 41 yards, and another TD, second week in a row. So they're looking at he may be the slot receiver for them. So anything to get excited about that I talked about there with this game?
I think, as far as those two teams go, I think it's going to be a different season for both of them. I think Miami's on a downward fall this year. I don't think they're going to, not that they were so great the previous years. I just think it's really going to show this year that they're not where the other teams are. And Detroit, it remains to be seen because it's preseason. But with a new offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, it's like they got a lot to show out there. And preseason, I know they haven't shown it.
Yeah, and they kind of played things tight to the vest, and they played in the Hall of Fame game. They were one of the first teams in, so I think Dan Campbell's like, all right, let's just get this over with the preseason. Let's start the regular season. But first and foremost in everybody's mind is how they limped home. They won all those games, big scores last year, and the Lions got to do better. So yeah, I kind of do agree with you. These two teams are going in different directions. Miami, Mike McDaniel, he better be on. No, he's on the hot seat. I mean, Stephen Ross has got to be an impatient with them. They haven't been in the playoffs the last couple of seasons. Tua has a concussion issue. You got Tariq Hill talking about he wants to play somewhere else sometimes. And you talk about fantasy football, their lineup, when you look at it, it's like explosive, when everybody's healthy. But the offensive line with Teron Armstead retiring is kind of in flux. And now you have a Chen with the calf injury. Alexander Madison, the backup running back, he had a neck injury. He's out for the year already. One guy to watch, though, is maybe Ollie Gordon, a young running back for them, coming from Oklahoma State. He did have 10 rushes for 50 yards. He's running hard, so he may place a Chen. And Wright, who they've been counting on, Wright looks terrible. So, Miami, yeah, I think it's going to be a long year for them, and then you make some McDaniel move on. Uh, Green Bay, 23, Colts 19. In this game, not a lot to talk about, but they still have not made a decision on the Colts starting quarterback. In this one, Daniel Jones, 7 of 11, 101. Andy Richardson was 6 of 11, 73 yards. He did take a sack. What's going to happen with the Colts quarterback situation?
I think the starter, if you're asking me the middle of October who's a starter, it's Daniel Jones. And I am not an Anthony Richardson guy by any means, but you draft that guy with the number one pick, he's got to play. It's like he has to be that guy. He has to be the guy that you started out with. So the fact that, and what does that say to your fan base if you start the season with Daniel Jones? I mean, I don't think this guy has all the heart to be a quarterback in this league, to be honest. The questionable things he's done when he said take him out of the game because he's tired last year. So it's like, I don't know if he's there, but you have to put him in there.
Yeah, and that just wipe an egg off their face if they didn't, if they don't. You know what I mean? And I always say for all the money, when you give a high draft pick, that's worth a lot. A top five pick, and they're going to get every opportunity. So I'll say they go with Richardson first, but it's going to be a short leash. It may be a
Mhm.
situation where, with his inconsistencies in terms of his completion percentage, they may just say, all right, let's just go with Daniel Jones. Now, I have heard that Daniel Jones has formed a nice rapport with some of the receivers, uh, Pierce and Pittman and some of the other guys. So that's going to be something to watch. But another team on a hot seat in terms of Shane Steichen and uh, Ursay passed away, unfortunately, and his daughter Carly has taken over the team, and she may be looking in a different direction. So it's something to watch there with the Colts. Last thing we'll talk about in terms of these games, the Raiders lose to the Niners 22-19, and I don't care about that. Ashton Genty, he looked a lot better the second time around. He's 7 rushes, 33 yards, 4.7 yards per carry, and a touchdown after 1 week when he ran for what I think -3. So is Genty the real deal? And where do you think people should take him in terms of fantasy?
Well, it's one of those things I've noticed on the. Is he the real deal? Who knows? I mean, it's once again, it's preseason, and I always fall back to this one thing about him. He's playing for the Raiders. He's running behind the Raiders' offensive line, and the thing is, the Raiders are probably going to be behind in a lot of games. So that's mean Geno Smith's throwing the ball down the field is not as much as Genty getting his carries. He's a first half reliant carry back. I've noticed in the ESPN mock drafts and everything else, in the beginning of the season, he started out like pick number 7 and 9, and now I've noticed him 12 to 14. And myself, I'm not touching him. I mean, if he fell to the fourth round, which he would not do, because I don't think it's a great running back group this year anyway. But someone's going to roll the dice and pick him high, but it's not going to be me.
Yeah, and I agree with you that they're going to be behind and throw the ball a lot because one of my big picks, Brock Bowers, I got him early, Kevin. They all were like, it's a little early for a tight end, Lloyd. I said, oh, no, it's not. I said, this guy is ridiculous. You put him in space. He actually had a big catch in that preseason game that we were talking about, and he just shows the explosiveness week in and week out. So I think he's going to help the Raiders. Um, and that leads us into our AFC West preview here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. And we'll start with the Raiders. There's no place to go but up. So the Raiders last year, 4-13. They bring in Pete Carroll. They bring in your buddy, the Chip Kelly, coming from Ohio State as the offensive coordinator. Patrick Graham stays as D coordinator. John Spytek comes over from Tampa to be the general manager. So the Raiders, just give me your early take on them, and then I'll just we'll start running down some things with their roster.
I think they'll be better. I think they'll be better than what they were last year, which isn't saying much at all. I was not a believer in the AOC there at starting quarterback, so instead now you got Geno Smith out there. Once again, Geno Smith, he's made more of his career than I thought he was at one point. He really seemed to concentrate more, put the work in, and be a valuable starter in the league. Not just some also ran who was a high draft pick. So I think with Geno Smith, they're a better team. If I'm guessing off the top of my head, 7 wins would be a good season for them.
Okay, and that's a good barometer. So we talked about the gambling aspect, and the win total over under for the Raiders is 6.5. So can they get to that 7? Kevin thinks so. I think maybe they come in around 6. So I think Pete Carroll brings some discipline. they do win more games, and they're not playing like the Raiders. They're not getting as much penalties, and they have something to build towards in terms of Genty and some of these other young guys. But a big thing, as you talked about, is the offensive line. Um, they do have Colton Miller, who's a pretty good left tackle. But other than that, it's just a hodgepodge. Left guard Dylan Parham, center is Jackson Johnson, uh, Jackson Powers Johnson. They have Outs Kappa coming over from the Bengals, and there's just not a lot on that offensive line. So, with that line in flux, you have to look at the receivers. Receivers, they brought in Jake Beck. I liked him coming out of TCU. We'll see how he does, but he was second rounder. But it's just a bunch of guys. It's like Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, who's kind of fast, but you wonder about him. They drafted Dante Thornton Jr. In the fourth round, and Tommy Millott, converted quarterback. He's in the sixth round. So trying to bring in some things, but it's like, all right, let's throw stuff against the wall and see how this works for the Raiders. I do think Geno Smith will work well. Pete Carroll again. Last year, he did have 43-20 in yards for Seattle, 21 TDs, but he did throw 15 interceptions. He's got to cut down on that. And they brought Mostert over as Genty's backup. Max Crosby got the bag. He got paid a lot, and he's going to be the linchpin on that defense. Surprisingly, they cut Christian Wilkins. I don't know if that was a locker room thing or what was going on there, but that's a big loss for them. So I think the Raiders will be better, but I don't think they hit that 6.5. We move on our AFC West preview here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football, 1029 The Game and Coast Sports Digital Network. Denver Broncos. Now, there were three teams that made the playoffs in this division last year, and the Denver Broncos were one of them. Surprise Sean Payton, former Super Bowl winning head coach. They went 10-7, getting the playoffs. They lost badly to Buffalo, 31-7. So they have some work to do there, but there was improvement, and particularly their defense has a lot of teeth, Kevin. They only allowed 18 points per game last year. Their over/under win total is 9.5. What do you think about that? And just talking about their roster, in particularly, I'm excited about Evan Ingram coming over there for them.
Off the top of my head, that was the one team, by the way, that surprised me the most last year. I didn't think they were going to be anywhere near as good as they were last year, especially with Bo Nix as a rookie. Peyton, is he washed? Is he past his prime? That kind of thing. Like, I don't understand why he took that Denver job when he first did it. I was like, all the jobs, you're taking this one? And sure enough, boom, has him right in the playoffs. The only thing I worry about with Denver is, once again, the sophomore slump there from Bo Nix. With more footage of him, people are used to him now. They have some weapons on that team. I'm interested to see who's going to get the most carries in that running back room, with R.J. Harvey, J.K. Dobbins, and a couple other guys. I mean, they have to establish somebody has to be the number one. Ingram, I do like going to Denver. Cortland Sutton, he's actually very underrated, I think. I think he's a good wide receiver. I don't think he gets publicity he should get, but yeah, I think he's a good wide receiver. I got him at 10 wins.
Yeah, I think they can beat that over/under total, and it may be barely, but yeah, I think they are in the mix. I don't think they win a division, but I think they're in the mix to make the playoffs again. And yeah, you talked about what they build upon last year: 6-2 at home, 3-3 in the division. They got to work on that. A big thing though was they led the NFL in sacks last year with 63 sacks. They got Dre Greenlaw coming over from the Niners to help in the middle with Alex Singleton, and obviously everything around that defense revolves around Patrick Surtain the second. He did start 17 games last year. I think he had 2 interceptions, but I mean, his coverage is just one of the best in the league. So I think Denver is going to be in the mix, good team. And you can't forget talking about him without Bo Nix. Bo Nix played very well. You worry about that sophomore slump, but he had a quiet 29 touchdowns last year, 12 interceptions. So played very well. I think Denver could be a team to keep an eye on in the playoff hunt. I'll save your favorite team for last, but we'll go to Los Angeles Chargers. Everybody always says, "Ah, the Chargers." Herbert. Herbert's better than Jalen Hurts and all these other guys. But is he really? They went 11-6 last year, but they lost badly to Houston in a wild card round, and they surprisingly their defense. I didn't even realize this till I did the stats. Their defense was ranked number one in terms of scoring. They only allowed 17.7 points per game, which I found crazy. But what do you think in terms of the Chargers? Are they for real? Are they a contender to knock off the Chiefs? But a big thing is they did lose Rashawn Slater. They gave him the contract, and then he tore his knee up, unfortunately. Their left tackle. They got to put Joe Alt on that side there. But what do you think about the Chargers?
I think Harbaugh did a great job coaching last year, and I'm not a Harbaugh guy, but I think he did a good job coaching with that team. They had to reinvent themselves. They had to become more of the Harbaugh style of football, and not only because that's his brand, but also for the fact they lost the wide receivers they had for Justin Herbert to go down the field. So they reinvented themselves that way. I think they can, along with Denver, challenge Kansas City. It's not for the fact that they've gotten so much better, it's the fact that Kansas City got another year older. I think it's going to add to it. But for the Chargers, off the top of my head, I would say if it was like 11.5, I would say under.
Okay, the win total actually was 9.5 when I looked at it. So I think they get over that. I kind of agree with where you're talking, and they've gotten some young guys. Trey Harris looks explosive, their second rounder. Keandre Lambert Smith, their fifth rounder. He's made some nice catches. They brought back veteran Keenan Allen. We'll see what he has left. And Herbert's going to put up his stats. And you also got to talk about Omarion Hampton. I mean, is he worth it? In some fantasy picks, I see he's going pretty high. Is that young man worth it, or should he worry about Najee Harris, Mister Fireworks?
I think Marion Hampton is now the sexy, trendy pick to do because everyone's valuing Genty. Oh, that's too high for him. But Hampton, oh, wait a minute. Who's this sparkly object in the background? He becomes that new, sexy running back that's a rookie that people want to jump on. I'm not touching him either. I don't know what the kid can do on the field, to be honest. I just know he's that nice buzzword name now that people like to jump on. And he's going like late first round, early second round right now.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll let somebody else take him. Because you got to worry about in terms of Harbaugh, and he likes veteran guys, especially God forbid the young guy fumbles or something, you're gonna put him on the shelf. So Greg Roman, who's now he's going to run heavy offense. So I say he'll go with Harris first if he's healthy, but Hampton, yeah, definitely keep an eye on him. We're in Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coast Sports Digital Network. Last team, Kansas City Chiefs. I know Eagles fans are like, aha, we got their number. You know what I mean? Because the last time we saw them, the Eagles beat the mess out of them. It was 40-22, Super Bowl 15. Mahomes sacked 6 times in the game. It wasn't even as close as that score. Obviously, they were 15-2 last year. Their 9th consecutive division title, one less than the record of Brady and Belichick. So, but they won 11 games. They were 11-0 in one-score games last year. And I think every week I would say to you, Kevin, can they keep this up? You know what I mean? They're winning on a blocked field goal, a kick return, something crazy like that. Just about the Chiefs, and are they on a downturn? The win total is 11.5.
11 and a half, gun to my head, I say it's under, but I think it's at 11. It's that close. Mind you, they're a year older, yes, but they're still good, and they know how to close out games. That's the thing. And a lot of these guys, these younger teams, they don't know how to close them out. And the fact that you brought up the Super Bowl one more time, I want to tell you one thing that annoys me about Eagles fans. And these are the obnoxious ones. When they're like, you say the score, oh, it's 40-22. They'll correct you like, no, it was 40-6. That game was over. Like they got to point out, like it's like, nah, like some guy had a T-shirt that said 40-6 was the real score. I'm like, come on, man.
I
But
know they played it in. I know Shipley and all the other
yeah.
guys are out there dancing around. The game was over, but the score is what it was, and yeah, the Chiefs probably got a garbage touchdown here and there, and then the thing is with the Chiefs in this division, they were 5-1 in the division. So I tend to think like you, it's going to be tight. Denver closes the gap a little bit, LA closes the gap a little bit, but I think with the key tiebreaker that they can in divisional games they can do that. So we talked about earlier, they got Josh Simmons to play that left tackle position. Obviously, the receivers and Fluck with Rice's pending suspension. They did bring in Jalen Royals, and they do have Xavier Worthy. So and Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes sacked a career high 36 times. So, but I think Andy and Patrick Mahomes still have one more run in them at least, and Karlaftis and that defense still has some teeth. So that's AFC West for you, everybody. Another great week here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. Thanks for being with us. And anything else, Kevin, before we jump out of here?
One thing I can't wait till next week so I can share with you my Money League fantasy football picks. But one thing I promise you, I'm not taking your boy Justin Fields. I'm just throwing it out there. Lloyd Vance is a secret Justin Fields fan. We'll get into it more next week.
I took him as my backup quarterback, everybody. But we'll talk about that more next week. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you later.